Today on Locked On Red Wings, Watson and Holl are assigned to Grand Rapids. Is this a sign of Fischer and Petry returning, or is it something else?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fischer and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am a color commentator for the Oakland University ice hockey team. And Scotty, just some news and notes really to clean up on before expanding on the defensive conversation, because we feel like Holl and Johansson's recent performances have kind of complicated in a good way, the defensive side of the puck. Watson and Holl were reassigned to Grand Rapids, and we will talk about the reasons why that may be. There's one obvious reason, and then there's one not so obvious. We'll break both of that down, but before I can get to that, got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Scotty, if I don't stumble over my next sentence, we'll see. Podcast is young. The Red Wings assigned, as I previously stated, Holl and Watson back to Grand Rapids. And I think the prevailing thought here would be that is an indicator that Fischer and Petry are now both ready to play hockey again. We had heard that they were day-to-day. I think they said Fischer could be ready as possibly as soon as this Thursday. But there's like another hidden reason why that might be, and could you enlighten the audience as to why it is? It's far less exciting than I am teasing it as.
Well, I just don't think this is anything. Like that's where I'm at. I don't think this really is anything. I think that this is more just paper moves. There's a few people that actually outlined kind of the difference in money that's moving around and whatnot if they are sent down and all of that. And yeah, man, like I don't think this is much of anything. I think this is very similar to something we saw a lot last season as well. Something that you brought that up before we hit record. I think immediately whenever anybody is put on waivers or whenever anybody is sent down, the initial reaction is they're gone forever, or like they're gonna get cut, or like et cetera. And I think this is probably just the two guys that they're playing for are healthy, or it's even less than that, and it's just literally nothing, and it's just a paper move, and they're gonna be back.
Yeah, literally nothing. It's a paper move is the secret second answer to the whole situation. Right. And like you said, that is literally nothing. The reason why they would do that, like why bother sending Holl and Watson down, but then call them back up possibly on Thursday, is simply because of that cap accrual thing that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And again, there was a really good article by Connor Eargood of the Hockey News that kind of broke it down. But basically, for every single day that you have cap space open, that cap space accrues that you can then spend later on via free agency, trade deadline, however you want. And so with Husso down, you're saving $1.15 million that way, because that's the max you can save on a player sent down. Justin Holl is another $1.15 million, and then you have the however little Watson is making at the NHL, probably league minimum. So there you got over $2 million, almost $3 million in cap space now, because you sent those guys down. So, and that's going to continue to accrue as each day progresses, and so that's 2 days of accrual. And then the other reason is because you have to send a guy through waivers, or for a player to rather to be waiver eligible, 31 days have to pass on the NHL roster, or 10 games played have to pass on the NHL roster. And so by sending these two guys down for 2 days, is you delay how soon you'll have to send them back onto waivers to clear. So it's a cap saving move, and it's a waiver saving move, and it's far less exciting than the prospect of two of your injured players getting healthy.
Correct. Yeah. I don't even really have anything else to add. I mean, it's
That's it. That's the discussion.
Right. It's not for Casper. Like, that's everybody's initial reaction whenever any roster move is made is, oh, is this for Marco? Like, no. It's one of two things, and neither are adding new players into the fold. It's either Petry and Fischer's return, or it's literally nothing, and it's just a paper move for salary purposes. So yeah,
Well,
sorry
and
to kind of rain on the parade, but.
And the reason we're talking about this is because I saw a lot of Red Wings fans on social media. It's really ironic, honestly. When the news broke that Justin Holl got sent back down, people were like, why are you sending him down? He played so well. He was better than Petry, which is crazy because 2 days ago, how quickly the tune changes.
Yeah.
We had to calm everybody down over them sending or recalling him from Grand Rapids. How quickly that changes.
We live in a different world than we did just a few minutes ago.
This is the same thing that they did to Simon Edvinsson last year. Is every day that they didn't have a game, they sent him back down on paper to save money on the cap. And they're going to do that with Watson, and they're going to do that with Holl until those days pass. So even if Holl sticks around and he plays games, he's probably on off days going to get sent down to save money on that day. So like, this is just something you're going to want to get used to until one of two things happens. They've either been on the roster for 31 days or they've played 10 games. That being said, I mean, that transitions us into our new conversation. Justin Holl, these last 2 days, has played pretty decent hockey. I know he had the really nice assist against the New York Rangers, but I thought his better game was against Nashville, personally. That being said, I think he's earned himself, and Max Boltman of The Athletic even said it, I think he's earned himself, more chances in the lineup. I think Albert Johansson, who didn't get sent down, but is another guy who's on the outside looking in come game one, has played amicably, looked very solid, and has been unnoticeable, which we've talked about as a compliment for the role that he's going to be playing. Like, he has been solid. So with that being said, when Jeff Petry comes back and you presumably want to add Gustafsson back in the lineup because you signed him to be your power play one option, we're back to where we were on day one before Justin Holl gets signed. What do you do with this defense? And now I feel like 3 games in, I understand, but just hang with us and let us have fun with this conversation. Is it as cookie cutter as it was now that we've seen what some of these players have to offer in 2024?
I think I know we were just kind of laughing at the concept of so much changing in a matter of days, but I think it's kind of fair. I think the biggest conversation going forward, and I'm not saying that this is going to be like a guarantee and that they are absolutely going to play together for, the next 79 games or anything like that. But I think the biggest conversation is going to surround the second pair. And who knows, like maybe Petry becomes healthy and he looks solid and that ends up being a solid pair. Again, we're 3 games in, but Justin Holl and Simon Edvinsson have looked pretty solid together, which is something I never, they play the games for a reason, man. Like I don't think too many people really thought that was going to be a sentence that was uttered, certainly not 3 games into this thing, but I think that it's a really fair thing to bring up. And for a pair that is lacking a legitimate solid half of it, right? Like you want Edvinsson to be in the second pair. You're presuming he's going to be there all year, but there's no guarantee that anybody that's a part of the revolving door of the other side of the second pair is going to be the long-term option there. So I really think they have a lot of flexibility there. I think Holl's looked pretty solid. We've only seen Petry for a game, so I'm not here to say that he's like guaranteed out or anything. As we have now seen within the fan base, opinion can change on a dime on some of these players, but I think that's kind of the biggest conversation. I mean, we'll talk Aljo. We'll obviously talk, like Mata, Gustafsson gets healthy there for 2 games. Like there's certainly a conversation surrounding the third pair, but I think it all kind of starts and ends with what you do with the other half of the Edvinsson pair.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think it is a very interesting because on one hand, I don't think that I'm not just because he's played 2 halfway decent games with some flashes of nice plays here, but some boneheaded plays there, doesn't mean I'm like, all right, time to just scratch Jeff Petry every day. I'm not to that point, but I think he's played well enough to earn himself more games, so we can continue to see and see if it shakes out into a better thing. Because this is the thing: is if Justin Holl is the player that he was signed to be, that's a benefit for the Red Wings. Like if he is the $3.5 million player, I think it's not quite $3.5 million, but if he's a $3.5 million player that they signed him to be, that is a boon for the Red Wings. So, like, as frustrated as we were, Justin Holl, and the more frustrated that he was in the press box considering what they were paying him than anything really performance related last season, it would be just as gratifying if you could break into the lineup as an everyday player and be an effective D-man. So it's one of those things where, like, you want to root for him to succeed. And so it's wild when people don't. Like, they're I understand, like we were saying in the offseason, right, Scotty, like, they got to get rid of this guy. And it wasn't because necessarily it wasn't because we were rooting against him. It was just because if you're not going to play him, why are you letting him eat up $3 million in your cap space? It had less to do with him as a player and more to do with the contract that he was signed to.
Right.
But we'll talk more about these possible combinations when we come back in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. They call it their Game Time Picks. And they have an all-in pricing toggle at the top of the screen that'll show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You got to make sure you turn that toggle on, though, so you get all that total up front. They have seat views that allow you to see a panoramic view from your seat before you buy, and the Game Time ticket coverage package allows your purchase to be covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Also, got to talk to you guys today about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to $100 your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. They are the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. They also offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, just as we are indicating in segment 1, just because Justin Holl has played decent enough to earn more looks in the nightly lineup does not mean that Jeff Petry's necessarily earned his way out. I mean, there was a reason why Justin Holl was scratched more nights than he wasn't in the last season. But with Albert Johansson playing as well as he did, and Gustafsson poised to come back into the lineup, how do you see these pairs shaking out for Thursday's game?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going into Thursday's game expecting Holl to be with Edvinsson, and then I think that might have more to do with them just saying, hey, look, Jeff, we got 8 defensemen. You're in no rush to come back, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, we'll take you back as soon as you're ready, but I don't think they're in any huge rush to get him back and rush him to health if he's not 100% ready. So I really am kind of expecting them to throw Holl out there. And then I think it's the bottom pair that's really the big question mark. Now, Petry could be healthy and they could just go, you know what, that's full health. We're going to throw him out there, and that's to be expected at some point anyway, and maybe that is Thursday. But I don't know. I think this team last year, they did a lot of riding the hot hand and a lot of, okay, this is working right now. While the team looks good, we're going to stick with that. And I kind of expect them to do the same with Holl. I would imagine Gustafsson is back in the lineup at some point, but that's another one that he's been healthy twice now, and Aljo and Mata looked pretty decent together too. So
yeah, it's really hard to determine how you should shake this lineup out when you're. It's weird because it's not like the defense is great on this team, but I don't think anyone, save that very first night, has played so abysmally that they deserve to be sad. I think it's just going to be you're going for a different look. I do agree with you in principle, though, that like Derek Lalonde, we've talked about it with the goaltending. He's going to run the lineup that he sees having the most success. And yes, they lost 4-1 to the New York Rangers, but we've talked about it at length. That was a good game by the Detroit Red Wings. That was the team that won the President's Trophy last year, and they ran into a really good goalie. One of the best goalies in the league, one of the best overall teams in the league. They outplayed and outchanced the New York Rangers. They just couldn't bury the puck because Igor Shesterkin is Igor Shesterkin. Like, it was incredible. So, like, that's two back-to-back games where really 3 games where they've improved upon the previous, right? Like, because Pittsburgh was horrible. Nashville was an improvement. New York was an overall good game until the third when they got desperate. And I don't see him making a drastic change to this lineup because of that. He sees the improvements on the ice with this lineup. I think he'll probably run it back, but I do see Gustafsson getting back into the lineup Thursday, if not Thursday, then Saturday. Because of the fact that they need him to be able to run the power play one. And Derek Lalonde did indicate that in the post-game media availability after the game on Monday against the Rangers, that they need Gus to be in the lineup. Then the question becomes like, okay, if we're in agreement, Scotty, that you can continue to sit Petry, not rush him back, let him take his time, because Justin Holl is crazy to say, but Justin Holl is locking down second pair right D, then who do you replace for Gustafsson? Are you subbing out Albert Johansson? I'm going to get it right, I swear. Or are you going to sub out a guy like Olli Mata, who is kind of plays a similar-ish, not one-for-one, right? Like, Albert Johansson's great in transition and everything, but like both he and Olli Mata are a third pair defensive pair, although Olli Mata is finding his offensive stride, apparently, if you look at the expected goals for on Monday. Like, who do you sit?
I think it's Aljo. I know that like sucks and nobody wants that, but like I think it would be a statement and like I don't know if I want to say like a bold move when we're talking about third pair D, but like I think it would be a heck of a statement in Game 4 to send out a offensive-minded defenseman that had a really bad game defensively in Game 1 and a rookie. Like I just think that they're gonna what's the phrase I'm looking for? They're gonna blend that line so that Olli Mata is playing a lot of games at the third pair. I said line pair this season. I really think that Mata is probably going to be a fixture down there. Maybe later in the season, maybe, but I find it really hard to believe that they're going to go offensive D-man, rookie, have fun, you're the third pair. I think that would be I'm not saying I'd be against it. If it happened, that'd be kind of exciting, but I can't imagine them doing that in Game 4.
I fear that you're right. Not that Olli Mata by any stretch is bad. He is an effective shelter D-man. Like, that is like literally his definition. If you go on Dobber Hockey, he is listed as effective shelter D-man, which is what is needed to play with Erik Gustafsson. Now, they had an abysmal first game, but that was more Gustafsson than Olli Mata. We're in agreement on that, and Gustafsson, hopefully, after being sat, has learned his lesson. He can come back and run that power play one and be serviceable in the defensive zone at 5-on-5. That's what we're praying for, right? So I do think you're right. I think it's going to be Albert Johansson, mainly because they're still extremely sheltering Albert Johansson because it is his first season in the NHL. They're trying to figure out how much he can really handle, and I agree that saddling a rookie sheltered D-man with an offensive D-man might not be the best idea, although I do think that there are a couple boons to that idea. One, Johansson can also play the right side and did play the right side with Ole Mata. That would allow Eric Gustafsson to play his natural left side if they're paired up. And also, because they're sheltered, they're going to be sheltered, and I'm not too concerned with Johansson being left out to dry too much. Of course,
at the end of the day, it's third pair D.
It's third pair, and we're splitting hairs. I do think you're right. I think it's going to be Albert Johansson. I think that's going to end up getting sat, which is going to be a bummer, and Jeff Petry. But I wouldn't mind seeing Johansson get some extra looks, but they're definitely a lot of blending going on. And that's even if they recall Justin Holl. There's also the realm where they're like, okay, well, we got 7D, man. We don't need to call him back up right now and burn a day on that waiver, that waiver exempt countdown calendar. So
no, that's actually a great point. If Petry's healthy, they can just say, we'll just save more money and keep you down there. But you know what I mean? I think
is that
there's a chance.
Is that a winning culture if you think Justin Holl gives you the better chance to win? Again, crazy to say that, but after 2 decent games, it's,
Yeah, but Petry was your second. He was in the top 4 all year last year. I don't know. This is the situation they gave themselves by going into the year with AD men.
And this is the situation the players played themselves into. Johansson and Holl had decent showings, so they've earned it. Again, I'm nowhere near 100% sold on Justin Holl, but I will give him credit where credit's due. That's 2 straight games where he's looked decent. Couple of a bad turnover in game 1, a bad high stick in game 2, but a nice assist. Broke up a breakaway. There are things there that make you think, okay, give him another shot.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to head to segment 3. When we come back, we'll talk about this weird rotating A situation going on with the Red Wings. It doesn't really matter, but it's just interesting to note. So we'll talk about that in segment 3. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, we mentioned it at the end of yesterday's episode. We just want to talk about it a little bit more at length here. 3 games, 3 different players wearing the A. Now, if you remember, last year the Red Wings had 3 different A's, 2 rotated depending on who was on home ice, who was on the way, who was away. It was Ben Sherratt, David Perron, and Andrew Kopp were your 3 alternate captains. Now, there were exceptions. Like when they played in Vancouver, Michael Rasmussen wore it. When they played in Chicago, Patrick Kane wore it. But this year, despite all our conversations about who gets the A now that David Perron's gone, the Red Wings have decided to throw us a curveball and have 1 rotating A. In the first game, it was Ben Sherratt. In the second game, it was Andrew Kopp. And in the third game, it was Patty Kane. What the heck, Scotty, is going on, and does it matter?
So does it matter? I think... No, this is something that's weird and that I think is odd for an NHL team to do, but do I think it's like detrimental or like really impactful? Like, no. I don't know. In my eyes, if you're just going to rotate the A and like everybody's going to get a turn at some point, like just don't have an A. Like, I don't know, like that's, I don't know, maybe that's flawed thinking, but like if you're really that worried about, like, I don't know, stepping on toes or like who's going to be, the whole point of getting a letter is so that you are known as one of the leaders of the team. And if you have too many to hand out, that's not a bad thing. Like having a team with a lot of leadership is not bad, but doing a like duck goose of like of the letter is so ridiculous to me. Like I think it's really dumb. I don't really see the purpose in it. But like ultimately, I don't think it matters. Like if the guys love it and if they're like, yeah, like this is what we wanted or whatever, then keep doing it. Like I'm not saying that it should be like abolished and it's hurting the team, but like I don't know. For in my head, logically, Like if everyone's going to get to wear it anyway, then just don't have one, man. Larkin gets his,
Right.
that's it.
Well, and that's a great point you bring up. Like, it doesn't hurt the team to be doing it this way. It's just bizarre. Like, I remember growing up, I would have, because I played house hockey, not a high level of hockey. You know, I wasn't very good. And so when you're not very good, you play in some teams that do odd things every once in a while. And I played on a couple teams that rotated letters. By the end of the season, everyone got a chance to wear the C and everyone got a chance to wear the A. And this is what this reminds me of. Like, all right, here you go, Patrick. It's your turn to wear the A. Congratulations, buddy. But like, again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just odd. Like
it was weird. Game one, like when my roommate and I were watching, and we were like, all right, like let's see who's rocking the A. Like that's one of the big questions. And they're doing the intros and whatnot, and we're like, and it's like, oh, like this person's not wearing it. That means it must be this person. We're like going down the line, and we're like, what? There's only one A, and then the next game it was someone different, and then the next game it was someone different, and we're like, all right, well this is stupid to me, but again, if the players like it and it works for them, it doesn't really matter, but it's just odd.
It is odd, but again, it doesn't matter. The weirder thing, too, is like last year you had 3. With Perron leaving, you're down to 2. So why are you only rotating 1? And like the thing that Derek Lalonde has said about it when they've asked, and they have asked a lot, is that like they have a leadership group of like 6 or 7 guys. So like there's not 3 guys that they can just give the A's to, and that's why they're rotating. It's like, okay, well, if your leadership group is 6 to 7 guys, why can you not rotate 2 A's per game? Or 3 A's per game? Why is it 1 A every single game? Again, we're splitting hairs and talking semantics about something that does not have a negative impact on this team. Like, it's just a letter, and I'm sure that's how they view it. But, like, because the only one that really matters is your captain. Like, having a defined captain is what really matters. Your A's are just like secondary leaders on your team. And if you have a leadership group of 6 to 7 of those, which I do believe they do. I mean, we talked about it in those conversations, right? Like, obviously Larkin's your captain. But we talked about how Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond have really grown into leaders. Sherratt is a locker room leader. Jeff Petry is a locker room leader. Alex DeBrinket's worn an A. Vladimir Tarasenko is worn an A. Patrick Kane, obviously, longtime assistant captain. Like, the list goes on of players on this team who have worn letters in different cities. So, like, I'm not surprised that Derek Lalonde said that they had a leadership group of 6 to 7 guys and are having a hard time, figuring out who they want their A's to be, and that's why they're rotating them. It's just weird to be rotating 1 when your group is that big. Yeah. But again, I'm going to keep saying it. We're going to say it until we're blue in the face. It doesn't really matter. It's just odd. That's all. Just unorthodox.
It's weird.
All right, Scotty. Any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, talking similar conversation today about the goaltending situation with Husso down in the minors. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.